November 15th, 2021. Malaya Bobcat, Reddit AMA, Netflix hearing, and more. Yesterday, I thought I had the whole day to catch up on my diary vlog, but after trying to track a black panther, or Florida panther, or what is most likely a bobcat, based upon the frantic call I and the FWC got the day before. No sooner had I rolled through the sanctuary gates, I got a call from a woman saying her mother had found a sick bobcat in the woods, and her father had carried the cat to their home and put it in a dog crate. It was 3 hours away, north of Lake City, so I drove up to get her. She circles for 20 minutes and sleeps for 30 in an unending neurotic cycle. I barely slept for worrying about her and checking the nest cams. I also worried about how I would catch her this morning, if we could find a vet who would treat her. Gail Ingham and Aaron Carden helped me catch her, and it went better than expected. We caught her in a sleep cycle, and Aaron held the net to block her from leaving the space, where Gail had pushed the squeeze cage up against her in the corner. Someone just needed to reach down and lift her up into the crate. And with welding gloves on and a prayer for my face, I did it. She rolled into the cage without much fuss. Deb asked if she had meningitis. I told her I didn't even know cats could get that. But turns out they can, and after $3,400 at Dr. Levine's in Bradenton, that was his diagnosis. So she's getting prednisone and antibiotics twice a day until the swelling in her brain goes down and she starts eating on her own. Today was the Reddit AMA, and depending on when you're hearing this, AMA was popular for Ask Me Anything. The Discovery people made it a lot harder and less efficient than it could have been. They insisted on selecting which questions I should and shouldn't answer, and then all 4 of them had to weigh in on how I should word each response for maximum ad value for the show. I could have answered 10 times as many questions without their help, but this was their rodeo and I did what they asked. I managed to work in some important topics, such as how to help with our federal bill, what the future of zoos will look like, and the number 1 question out of 1,042 being, what do you think happened to your missing husband? It got 12,600 upvotes, to which I responded, Don loved to fly and was looking to buy ultralights and experimental planes. I believe Don crashed a small experimental plane or ultralight into the Gulf for a number of reasons. He wasn't licensed to fly, yet did it all the time. He couldn't file a flight plan and had to take off from closed airports to evade detection. He had to fly under 200 feet to stay off the radar, which means he would typically fly out over the Gulf because the air is smoother there, whereas over land there are up and down drafts that will crash you at that height. Since phone records indicated he was planning to go to Texas and his van was found at a small private airstrip, and we have never found Don or the wreckage, I think this was the most likely scenario. I talk about all of this in my online diary at savethecats.org. It got 11,500 upvotes. I guess more people like the question than my answer, just confirming their confirmation bias against hearing the truth. Netflix hearing. 4 days after the Tiger King 2 trailer aired with a show date, our attorney filed for a temporary restraining order, a TRO, based on the fact that none of the release forms we signed were for anything other than a single film. He made the case that they could not use the release for Tiger King 1 to include the footage in sequels and got the industry expert named Matoff to attest to that. Judge Covington obviously did not read the pleadings and thought we were asking for a temporary restraining order based on not liking the way they trash-talked me. I think she totally missed the point of the contract-based dispute. She then passed it over to her magistrate when we appealed her decision. The magistrate, an 82-year-old, seemed brighter than I would have expected for the way he moved and looked. He seemed to follow most of the arguments, as could be told by his rebuffs to both sides. He made it clear to our attorney there was no way he was going to suggest to Judge Covington that she was wrong, because he loves tigers, and even though he admitted to never having seen it, he felt like it must be about tigers and they need protection. None of the audio-visual connections in the courthouse worked, so we couldn't show him the clips. The magistrate judge rebuked a Netflix attorney, saying it was clear that the releases were for a single production and not for sequels. In his mind, I think the only prevailing question will be whether it's free speech and fair use for them to use my footage without permission. He called a recess, so that could be 3 days, 3 months, or, as in other cases, more than 3 years. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.